Thank you, folks. We're resuming. I'm grateful to the applicant who's here to speak about the Burford Lane applications, because he's happy for the last item to be brought forward, because that's what most of the members of the public are here for. So if members are agreed, we'll turn to page 231 and 17 Farnworth Road, Penketh. Gary.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the application relates to a two-storey end of terrace property situated in a mixed area. There's a car repairs business to the west and Penketh Court care home opposite, and the surrounding area is generally residential in nature. The property has previously been used as a children's home for up to 2 children. This was understood to be the case for 8 years, from 2012 to 2020. With use for semi-independent living for 2 young people taking place between 2020 and 22. Section 6 in the report gives a little bit more detail about the site history in that respect, and the property's been vacant since, we understand. The proposed use is a children's home operated by Warrington Borough Council for up to 2 children aged between 12 to 18 years. There will be 3 members of staff on site during the normal day, and 2 residential staff outside these hours working 24-hour shifts. In terms of representations and consultations, these are covered again in more detail in the report in sections 4 and 5. From neighbours, we've got 4 responses individually from 3 properties and a petition signed by 34 residents from Penketh Court. The main issues, which are expanded on in the report, are crime, antisocial behaviour, parking, vehicular comings and goings, the standard of accommodation. Penketh and Curdley Parish Council also object on similar reasons relating to crime, antisocial behaviour and the standard of accommodation. From consultees, we had no objection from Environmental Protection, no objections from Highways. We consulted the Cheshire Police, and whilst they expressed concern and said that they couldn't support the application, their comments in detail are in the update reports, and they did note that concern about crime is not usually something that's taken as a material consideration in determining such planning applications. As members are aware, all planning applications must be determined in accordance with local planning policies unless material considerations indicate otherwise, and the relevant policies within the core strategy are contained within section 7 of the report. The key issues with the development are discussed in section 9. In terms of the principle of the development, a care home for children is a residential use, and this is primarily a residential area, so the officers consider that this is an appropriate use for such an area. The report also sets out, has a section about the need for such accommodation, and refers to the Ministry of State's statement of the 23rd of May this year, which asks for support for the provision of such accommodation. And we also have a council policy in relation to children and young people's plan. And those are set out in more detail at 9.25. Impacts on residential amenity that have been put forward by in the representations. Crime and antisocial behaviour is not considered to be an inevitable element of a children's home use. It's more a question of appropriate management, and whilst it's impossible to rule out some elements of such behaviour, similar could arise at any family dwelling, and we have to assume that behaviour is managed appropriately in such uses to minimise any impact on neighbours. So, in our view, it's not material to consider the elements and instances potentially of bad behaviour that may have happened in the past in coming to a decision on this application. Nevertheless, the application that or the recommendation that we've made includes a limit to 2 children, and that's relevant to a number of issues on the application in terms of the size of the property, the number of staff that might be needed, and so on. In terms of the standard of accommodation, this is a typical family dwelling, so it's wholly appropriate for accommodating 2 children and members of staff that are looking after them. And there's no national standard that suggests that this isn't met for such a property. There's no objection from Highways in relation to the application, and the recommendation is to approve, subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thank you.
Any closed members? We do have two speakers against. Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask, would this application be for us if it was not Borough Council owned land? Would we have to consider it? Or is that the reason it's come before committee?
There's a parish council objection, but I would have to check on whether that was received in its 21 days. I've not got that noted down before me, I'm afraid. It wouldn't necessarily have to be, no. If it wasn't a council application and there was no call-in or parish council objection, it wouldn't necessarily have to come to committee.
So I thought two of the ward councillors had asked for it to come. Sorry, yes.
Sorry. I was taking that as the...
Yeah, 4-2. Yeah, so it would have come. Yeah. Okay, thank you for that clarification. It would have come. Let's hear from who's going first. Leslie Fitzsimmons or Neil Fitzsimmons to speak against. Hello.
Good evening, Chair, committee members. I, along with the residents of Pencoth Course and other residents who reside on Farmouth Road, strongly object to the change of use at 17 Farmouth Road. The property is in totally an unsuitable location. It is in a very quiet residential area which houses more elderly than young residents. I can vouch for many antisocial incidents plus regular police visits that this house brings. That prospective residents will also bring about the same due to the size of the home and the location and the lack of the amenities in the area for people of this age. The management and staff who have worked there have also expressed their concerns with the location and the lack of activities for the children. The management of the house, no matter how experienced, as you know, there is only so much control they can have. We have also reviewed all the Ofsted reviews, which reflects on the poor management for the last 11 years. I think one actually reached good, only one. As for saying a large settlement would not make a difference, we hereby strongly disagree. This is a small terraced property in a very small residential area. As for the number of children, no children that live on the 7 houses on the road that we live on, and it's an inadequate size for a family. So we totally disagree with the opinion that this size of house is. First of all, going to just talking about highway safety, I would like to request that there is a site visit arranged to this property before any decision is made. The opinion that the property would no more increase traffic generation, although there is only one parking permit allowed per household. Yet there would be 3 members of staff at any one time on duty, and handover time there would be 5 members. Where will they park? The working times are more irregular than a normal family dwelling, as they come and go in the early hours of the morning and late at night. As the application states, local street parking pressure will be increased, the possible inconvenience of the other residences and the local businesses. I would like to address the statement that the Minister of State for Housing and Planning, Rachel McLean, on May the 23rd this year said that the local planning authorities should give due weight to and be supportive of applications for accommodation such as 17 Farmouth Road, but not at the expense of the loss of an existing family dwelling. We would like to know how the property reflects the children's local needs, as there are no amenities. Wellington Borough Council supposedly sent out 93 letters. This was in the form of a leaflet, and only number 15 Farmouth Road was the only house that received one. Numbers 5 to 13 that are on the same row as number 17 didn't get one. The transparency of this whole application has been incognito and very secretive, as this was the first use of this house going back to 2012. It's also said by the applicant that no work has been undertaken at this house. I can assure you the whole house has been fully decorated and completed before the application was submitted. It was just like it had already been rubber stamped and sealed. The residents of Pencoth Court, many who are elderly and vulnerable, feel extremely intimidated by this property, housing unstable children, and have witnessed many violent disturbances day and night, so much so the residents will not venture out. The location on this busy road is also a major concern, as when you arrange a site visit, this will become apparent, as you can probably see from the photographs which have been submitted, how busy and dangerous this road really is. May I just add, this house belongs to Warrington Borough Council, who also has a duty of care to the already residents in the area. I would like to see the committee as Warrington Borough Councillors act in the best interest of the children, considering their safety and well-being. If this is passed,
wind up, please?
I and the rest of the
Well over
objecting
time.
residents will look to appeal to the Planning Inspectorate and the Minister of State for Schools and Childhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr Fitzsimmons?
Well, no.
Just yourself, not Mr Fitzsimmons as well, no? If you could stay within the time limit, that would help.
Evening Chair, members. I'm here on behalf of Michael Scott, who is unable to represent himself today. Michael runs the Peter Scott car workshop. It's the business next door to 17 Falmouth Road. All it is, he just wanted to share a story about his grandfather, a veteran and a long-serving police officer, living in the bustling streets of Liverpool to seek a quieter life on Falmouth Road 50 years ago. His decision was driven by a deep desire to provide a safe environment for his young family to thrive. Falmouth Road was a haven of tranquility, offering respite from the urban glamour of once a daily part of his life, a place where his children could grow, surrounded by a beautiful embrace of close-knit community. Over the years, he come to cherish the serenity and Falmouth Road had offered him. However, as time brought about changes he could never anticipated, once was a peaceful road has seen a surge in traffic transform once a tranquil and safe haven into a place of noise and congestion, and he understands that part of modern Britain. However, this shift has posed many challenges for him and so many other residents of Penketh, especially the rides on a mobility scooter to maintain his independence. The increased traffic and parked cars have made it simply going out a daunting task, and at times an even impossible one. Even the introduction of parking permits for residents has only marginally improved the situation. And now, as if the challenges were enough, the proposed children's residential homes threatens to exacerbate the situation. The prospect of more traffic and parked cars only adds the hurdles and he and so many others face when venturing out. There's no way that a care home can operate on a residential street with permanent parking that won't affect the traffic on already busy and difficult road to navigate. Anyone who's actually physically visited Falmouth Road can confirm this, not just by morning rush hour situation. This is 24/7. As residents now can fully park on the road, however, the area outside their properties is always full, and we don't understand where the extra three people who could possibly park without blocking access to pavements. Each household is only entitled to one parking permit, with 2 members of staff being in the property. A minimum is simply not parking at the property, so how can this possibly be acceptable for grant planning? As a community, we must reflect on the values that drew Michael's granddad and countless others of his generation to Falmouth Road and the surrounding areas. Let's not forget the sacrifices that were made to build a tight-knit community, nor the challenges that Michael's granddad and others faces. Let's unite to find solutions to honour the past while embracing progress in a way that uplifts all the residents, particularly those who rely on mobility assistance. In conclusion, I don't think anyone would disagree more that children's homes are necessary. However, they certainly should not be established where it will take away the independence of elderly residents who build this wonderful community. Agreeing to this plan will take away their freedoms. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any queries to officers first? Councillor Ellis.
Could you clarify, please, thanks Chair, what that area is to the left of the property? There appears to be an area there which looks, I don't know whether it's an alley, with cars parked in it, and who does it belong to? Is it associated with the property, or is it separate, or? Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. As I understand it, that's a shared access serving the rear of the terrace properties, including the one that's subject to the application.
Yeah, sorry, that part, it is an access way. It's not really designed for parking. Peter Scott cars do put cars there temporarily while they're being repaired, but it's not really an access for parking.
Okay. Any other queries? Obviously, there's suggestions of previous antisocial behaviour when it was in similar use. To what extent is that relative? Or we presume we can't assume that that will be repeated. Can we assume it can't? What might not be repeated?
Well, councillors will be aware, the MC will be aware that crime and fear of crime is material consideration in determining a planning application, but it needs to be based on some clear evidence. In these instances such as this, it does come down to more of a management issue. It's individual relationships and the management response to that. Now, we'll notice in the update note we do have a response from the police, which says similar and raises concerns over the engagement of staff in the facility as it's been occupied previously with Cheshire Police, and those comments will be fed through to the applicant, Warrington Borough Council as applicant, to ensure that situation improves in the future where possible.
Sorry, Councillor Gallagher.
So Chair, two issues here, and they've been raised quite elegantly by the people who live in this area about car parking and children's amenities. It looks like a very small front garden. I presume it's a yard in the back. So it's probably a yard in the back. So the amenities for children aren't ideal, and the parking doesn't look adequate.
Can I just add something? It is a paved area at the back.
It's page 249, pictures of the rear of the property, including the yard. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Ellis were you going to come back? Oh, sorry, Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to address some of the points that have been raised by residents, namely the road. This road has caused quite a lot of casework over the last few years. It's an extremely busy road, which takes an awful lot of traffic. We've had quite a lot of accidents along that road. To mitigate against that, we had a project which put in H-bars to allow vehicles to break their journey up so that the cars could travel, because it's with parked cars it became pretty much a single track lane. And recently we've had yellow lines put along the side of the care home to make sure that the people of the care home weren't parking there to allow this traffic to come through. Because the cars were parking there previously, they've then had to go and saturate the rest of the area, which then meant we had a residence permit scheme put in place, which protected the residents, but has allowed more cars to have to go and park elsewhere. There is genuine concern over the traffic for this road.
Yeah, okay. The photographs that you've got in the update note did come in late, but I will point out that's before these alterations of double yellow lines opposite and the residence permit parking.
This may not be relevant, but if I look at the map here, the plan, and I look at the aerial view, the area between Lammerton Close and the rear of these properties appears to be a car park, and it doesn't have many cars on it as far as I can see in the aerial photograph. Do we know whose it is and whether it's relevant to this property, and whether that's an area that could be used for car parking? Thanks.
I think it's the pub, isn't it?
As I understand it, that's the pub car park. So we wouldn't rely on that in terms of parking provision.
Lennon?
Sorry, Chair, I just wanted to probably just discuss with colleagues, because obviously this being in my ward, I've had conversations with people that are in support of this and that are against it, probably equally. I just want to make sure that all members have read the update notes, because I've only just read them in the last few minutes, and that's quite a concerning statement from the police on page 12. Just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that statement in case it influenced how they wanted to decide on this one.
So we've got the response from the I'm not sure where Cheshire Police's response had been. Was that not in the report originally? And we've got officers' response?
No, it was, there was a late consultation and response received, so that's why it was in the update note rather than the main report. And officers' comments, response to it are in the update note as well.
Councillor Jervis.
Thank you, Chair. I think I heard officers talk about, in terms of poor behaviour in the past, that for that to be sort of material, there needed to be clear evidence. There does appear to be clear evidence from a number of sources, but perhaps most pertinently from Cheshire Police in the update note that we've got today. So I just wonder, from a residential amenity point of view, given there have been a number of incidents and concern about how this place is run, is that not a material planning consideration?
So what the phrase that I used previously is crime and fear of crime can be material to the decision. If we just look at the comments that have been received from Cheshire Police, it does say, it talks about the PCO shows concerns of youngsters on car roofs in the past and also getting in care homes and grounds. This is very small scale. I'm not sure how it was occupied previously, but it's very small scale, just two residents that they're proposing between the ages of 12 and 18 in this unit that's proposed tonight. But it does go on then to say that some of this concern could, of course, be based on perceptions and fear of crime. So perceptions of fear of crime wouldn't be material. I think the other thing as well is, just to jump back a bit, apologies, so the first paragraph there from Cheshire Police, the final sentence, the last period being a short period in January, which coincided with 4 incidents being reported. According to the information that we have at that particular time, January this year, this wasn't used for those purposes. So there is no, on this basis, there is no clear evidence that those resulted in those instances. And then it goes on to say, the final paragraph there in terms of planning judgment, the police respect the kind of the parameters that we work within. However, the engagement of the staff previously seems to be her principal concern. And obviously, from a planning perspective, we can pass those key messages on to the applicants.
Can I just pick up on that page 12, because it says the previous use was semi-independent living accommodation. Are we talking about the same thing as is now proposed? Not quite sure how material it is, because it's once you've approved it as children's home, presumably it could be different anyway. But is that a factor, that how it was, what it was previously compared to what's proposed now?
It's a factor that for 8 years it seems to have been used as a children's home that had, sort of Ofsted reports, although obviously comments have been made about what those reports said. The semi-independent living, I would understand that to be slightly different to a children's home, and particularly in terms of the level of care involved. Yeah, and there would be less on-hand care for that sort of use.
Sorry, I was going to say, is that something that could be conditioned more closely about the potential use? Because if it was, this other use previously, could something be conditioned to restrict the use?
We've recommended a condition restricting it to a care home within Class C2. So I think from what I was saying before, I would think that semi-independent living is perhaps not within that use class. And we've restricted or suggested a condition to restrict it to 2 children, which that previous use may have fallen into that category.
Someone was signalling, Councillor Gallagher.
Chair, we have many of these developments, homes around Warrington, and there is a huge need for children in need. And we cannot tar every child that goes into one of these establishments as a thug, a troublemaker, antisocial behaviour problem. We have to be a bit more pragmatic about that. And we have to give it due consideration as to the need to this type of development as well. But I do need to come back just straight away, because parking will be an issue there. So is there adequate parking there? In
short, no. That's the easy answer to that. basically everything that's been said so far, you know, we would not argue against. Farmouth Road is busy. It varies in width. There's a bit of a pinch point, sort of outside Peter Scott Cars. The movement situation has improved over the years since the introduction of double yellow lines to try and regularise the parking that's there. And in terms of the site itself, it's a residential house would require, or the residential house as is, requires 2 spaces. A care home technically would require 4 spaces. But we've got this residence parking scheme which effectively limits it to 1 space per dwelling. So on balance, we've looked at what's the difference between a residential house and a care home. And I think on page 234 of your report, there's the details of the comings and goings. And it's, aside from monthly visits, the day-to-day movements are not much different from what you'd expect of a residential home. And so the question is, from a domestic home, sorry, yeah, when I say residential, I mean domestic. So the question is, could those extra 2 require parking spaces, or the 3, because only 1 can be accommodated, can they be catered for in the vicinity? And parking is a demand, but there are locations in walking distance where they could be catered for.
If I recall, there's virtually unlimited parking from the roundabout with Sankey Way to on the map, almost to the garage, I think, isn't there? And then, but that means people walking further than they might want to do, which is always a problem. Someone else is signalling. Councillor Lennon, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Just a point on that. There isn't really any immediate parking. It's all typically private land, or it would be moving the situation to other residential areas which are also tight on parking. So I just want to echo what Councillor Gallagher said. I fully support homes like this. I know of a few in my ward which, for safeguarding reasons, don't get advertised, and I know they do an excellent work. I also sit on the Protecting the Most Vulnerable Committee and know firsthand the good work that they do. So there's a lot of my heart that wants to support this, but because I've got the local context, the parking is a genuine concern, the road is a concern, and the statement from the police about the lack of engagement with the staff is probably the deciding factor for me. I'd like to move that we refuse this, please, Chair.
Just be clear, lack of engagement with this, which staff are we talking about, sorry?
In the penultimate paragraph on today's update notes,
yeah.
The police are noted as saying probably the most concerning is that the local officer has had difficulty engaging with the staff who have at time appeared a little blasé and resistant to engagement. A solid relationship with the police at local level is key to a successful home and managing any community hostilities.
So we are talking about previous use 2 years ago, aren't we? So
this reads like it's current.
No, the concerns aren't current. They might have been current then about that, how that setting was being operated then, but not necessarily now.
It's not operational yet.
Sorry?
It's not operational yet.
No, but if it were operational, if it were approved, yeah. People, Mrs. Fitzsimmons wants to come back. Do members want to hear? Briefly, if you may.
Yeah, I'd like to say that the police visits have been regular for the past 11 years. So it's not kind of just...
Well, I mean, the point is we're talking about how it was being operated then, and that might not necessarily
even
be the same in the
no matter
future.
what age child is there, it's not managed. It's never been managed appropriately, no matter what the age the children are.
Go on briefly, because I've got
Just
a proposal.
a very quick question. Is it proposed that this would be operated directly by the Borough Council, or would it be operated by a third party under a contract?
And I don't have that information, but I'm not sure that that's relevant to the use.
So Lennon, you proposed...
I did, Chair, yes. Proposed to refuse.
I'm not sure the reason you gave will quite stand up if it's not referring to...
Well, I mean, the material consideration ultimately is highway matters, traffic and parking, but then also the looking back on previous police reports and taking this statement collectively, then the concerns around crime, but the highways and crime would be the two reasons for refusal.
So the highways issues and based on yeah, I'm saying crime or antisocial behaviour based on the previous use, would that actually, it's not going to go to appeal anyway, but would that stand up?
I think that would be the issue in that instance, if it was directly related to the comments of the way that it was previously operated by whoever was operating at that time. That cannot be material to this decision. It is, as we said earlier, a management issue. If there is a wider point to be made about crime and fear of crime by having the children's home in the area, that would be material, but I don't think, from what I'm hearing, I don't think members are making that link.
Because that would apply to any children's home anywhere. Yes. So, members, Councillor Lenihan's proposed refusal on the grounds of highways and crime. I'll show how to express the crime one. Perception of crime. But can you say based on previous use, or is that not stand up?
Perception isn't, sorry.
No, perception isn't a planning issue.
No.
Yeah. It's very difficult because you can't you can't predict what may happen. You can only look at what's gone on, and if it's not exactly the same situation, which is for every planning application. So members, I'm sure you see the difficulty. Councillor Lenihan, can we?
I mean, if we look at the report that we've had from the police, they say that they're unable to support it. Maybe if it's seconded and approved, that we look to detail the wording as we've done before after the meeting.
Sorry, could you repeat that? I wasn't sure you.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that obviously I'd like to probably have full sight of the communications with the police if we wanted to add anything more complex than crime issues and highway issues. So maybe we could add detail to the refusal if the vote goes that way after the meeting.
You can't add stuff to the reason for refusal after the meeting.
I mean, the alternative option in that instance is to defer. So, I mean, the advice that we're providing here is that the relationship to the people who staff that building it comes down to a management issue. So I wonder whether members would be more comfortable to defer the application. I realise we've got a resolution put in front of us. But should that not be successful, a resolution to defer whilst we seek more advice from the applicant around its operating processes.
Sorry, and before we...
I mean, I have moved that we refuse, but it's not been seconded yet. So if it's seconded,
no, I know it hasn't.
We could have the vote. I mean, we've only had sight of these at best for an hour. I've only read it for 15 minutes. So that's why I was just saying we have worked previously on the wording of a refusal after the fact. But if we need to do it now, maybe we could have a 10-minute break.
Members, given that we don't like deferring, but given some of the issues are turning on previous use and how it might be used in the future, and whether that condition creates anything, you can't control. As you've said, you might get a problem family, moving in at any time. So that's a separate issue. Councillor Jervis.
Chair, I'm happy to second on the basis of the highway concerns. I think what we've heard today is some pretty strong comments that this does not satisfy highway needs, and I'm happy to talk about the crime aspect because I think that is another important aspect, but I think there's a slam dunk in terms of highway safety in terms of what I've heard tonight from officers, so I'm prepared to second Councillor Lenning, and on that basis.
On the grounds of, how are we afraid, before we put the resolution, want to know what the actual wording would be relating to crime? Have you got a rough?
So you're looking to refuse on the basis of crime
Sorry.
resolution. So we would need further details on that, whether it is perception of crime, which generally isn't considered.
I don't think we're saying perception of crime. It's
Actual crime.
It's very difficult because it's a future use, so you can't prove actual crime, can you, for a future use?
I think if you leave the crime bit out and go with it, because, you know, the police officers as well, I respect plan and judgment, potential behaviour, prospective occupants is not considered. So you can't use crime in the past about something in the future. That's the thing.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Chair.
Well, we've got enough problems without... oh, someone's signalling. Yes, go on.
You seconded the motion. No, we're talking about other things.
No, we can talk what we like. We can talk about what we like after the moment. We can have further discussion if we wish. Sorry. We're talking about a resolution which I will put when I think it's been sufficiently discussed. If it's carried, then the application will be refused. If it's not carried, then we see what we do next. Yes.
Just seeking clarification on this. So at the moment, looking at the Families First report from 2021, so the council report, at the moment this is a transition home for 17-plus-year-old children, so with 3 bedrooms potentially in use. Is that currently legal use? Would that require planning permission for young people to live in a residential property? I'm assuming that this use could continue legally, and what's proposed is to actually put in place a more controlled situation.
Use has ceased anyway, and that it's not currently in use at all. Just for 2 young people of that age living there, that would just be 2 people living in a house, as far as I can see. So that could continue with no controls over it.
Any further debate, members, before we put that resolution to refuse? Councillor Wheeler.
Could you repeat the reasons to refuse again for me, please?
To my officers for that.
So I think Mike has started considering some wording around the highways issue, and I think we need further clarity on the crime matter before I could give you some more detailed wording on that.
Sorry, I'm not happy for the... I wouldn't be happy with both the highways and the crime in the reason to refusal. I might be happy with one, but not the other.
Presumably the highways one you'd be happy with rather than the crime one?
Yeah.
Yes. However, Councillor Lennon, it's your resolution. Before I put it, do you want to restrict it to one item or... whose? Do you want to come back, sorry?
It's just if Chair and the committee want it, just some recommended wording for a reason for refusal on highway grounds. I would suggest that the reason for refusal is lack of parking, leading to indiscriminate parking in a residential area, and a subsequent impact on residential amenity and the free and safe movement. And that's contrary to policies X, Y, and Z, which we would fill in later.
Councillor Lenihan.
Then yes, Chair. Mike being a wordsmith like that, yes, we will use that wording, please, if we may.
Is that as the sole reason for refusal?
As I'm led by colleagues, if Councillor Wheeler would be more minded to support it just based on highways and others are nodding, then yeah, I think it was just the shock of reading this in the update notes while we were talking about it that it sounds quite severe, but if we just want to do it with just highways, then yes, I'm happy to accept that.
Got to ask, as you said before, we only got that update note a few hours before the meeting. Members I wanted longer time on it anyway, but it has been. So we're just talking about refusal on highway grounds as Mike has listed them. Is that's okay? Don't think we need any further debate. Those in favour of refusing on the grounds of inadequate parking, essentially, isn't it? But the wording that was just read out. If you, those please show.
We've got a is that been seconded?
It's been seconded, just
Yes,
on the highways grounds, yes. Yeah. Those in favour of refusing. And those against in favour of refusing. Which means, okay, that means we carry on. The obvious next thing will be to defer for further information on the use. Otherwise, if somebody wants to propose we approve as per the recommendation, that would be the other immediate option.
Well, then I think, Chair, I mean, obviously we had a motion to refuse that was then amended to support a colleague. But if that isn't successful, then that does bring into the genuine concerns over the police. I mean, for the police to release a statement this negative, I do think we need more information around it.
Okay, as we only got that information literally 3 hours before the meeting, are people content if we do defer it for further information? Yeah. I'll put that from the chair that we defer. Is that seconded? That's seconded, Councillor Eastie.
Further information on management.
On management, but I think any further information we get, including from the police, about might tease out some of what they expect and whether the police have understood it's not the same as the previous use. But I think that's the key thing. You know, if it's obviously going to cause the same problems, then that's another issue. But yeah, Councillor.
Chair, it's really unfortunate that the police have had the application for quite some time and then don't reply in the right time order and then do a late order on the last minute. It's not really that good.
No.
So if I can just clarify on that, just in the interest of fairness. So they weren't consulted directly on this planning application. It's been as a result of the public opposition, which we have sought their later comments.
Can I also ask, it was said before that I'm not quite sure there's the notice of the planning application had only gone to the next door rather than the whole row. Is that presumed the notices had gone to everywhere within?
Social services.
It was just social services, was it? Okay. Not the planning application. Okay. That's been your second, Councillor Eastie seconding. Those in favour of deferring it, please show. Okay, any against? And abstentions? Okay, so we're deferring it for further information. Sorry to have dragged you here, folks, to have no conclusion tonight, but it will come back to another agenda fairly soon, I imagine. Thank you.